class, we're now on a new topic, which is the popliteal fossa, which is, and also the posterior compartment of the leg. So, uh, class, do you realize that you're about to you're about to be second year? You're now in the lower extremities, and Dr. Ongbit already lectured on the foot, and that's almost the last of the part of your human body, the one that we are studying human anatomy. Na-late lang ako hinguti, but anyway, bear with me. We will be discussing on the popliteal fossa. So your popliteal fossa, ano na ini. The popliteal fossa is wait ha, kaibigan na how to manage this. So this is your popliteal fossa, and it is an intermuscular stack space. You will see that it is bounded by muscles. Muscles coming from your thigh and the lower thigh, and muscles coming from your upper leg. So your popliteal fossa could also be referred as a hoe or a knee pit, just like your armpit. Now this is a shallow depression at the back of the knee joint, and the shape is particular. It is diamond shape, and it is found in the posterior aspect of the knee. The bones underneath are the femur and tibia, which are the two long bones of your leg or your lower extremities. And if you want to see the knee joint with the popliteal fossa more prominent, you can do this by flexing the knee joint or bringing your lower leg to your, although not completely, to your thigh. So the boundaries of the popliteal fossa, you have seen it in the illustration which I flashed earlier. So there will be a lateral medial and lateral medial and a lateral upper boundary and a medial lower lateral medial and lateral upper and a lateral lower boundary, and a medial upper and a lower medial boundary. So you will see the lateral upper boundary is your biceps femoris. If you remember, your biceps femoris comes from the lower portion of your thigh. And the below, laterally or superolaterally, the boundary will be the lateral head of the gastrocnemius muscle and the plantaris muscle. Then medially, you have the semimembranosus muscle and the semitendinosus muscle bordering the popliteal fossa, superomedially. Then inferomedially, you will have the head of the gastrocnemius muscle, the medial head. So if you notice the inferior boundary of your popliteal fossa, the inferior boundary, both lateral and medial, both in the infero portion, you will have the gastrocnemius muscle, medial head for the medial inferomedial boundary of your popliteus, and inferolaterally would be the lateral head of the gastrocnemius. So meaning to say, your gastrocnemius is a two-headed muscle. Then the floor will be uh, made. This will be anterior to posterior. But in anatomic, and but you have to remember that the cadaver is will be in a what is pronated position so that the popliteal surface of the femur will be seen farther. Then the above that will be the posterior ligament of the knee joint, and the most uncovering these two structure will be your popliteus muscle. Then the roof would be made by the deep fascia. So from anterior or inferior, you have the deep fascia of the thigh. Then going um, going anterior no above your deep fascia will be your superior superficial fascia, and the outermost structure that will form the roof will be the skin. Now, the content of the popliteal fossa um, will be your popliteal vessels made up of popliteal artery, which is a deeply placed continuation of the femoral artery. Your popliteal artery is a continuation of your femoral artery. And this will be um, opening at um, the continuation, the popliteal artery will become, the femoral artery will become a popliteal artery at the opening at the distal portion of the adductor magnus muscle. And this blood vessel, it will now be a popliteal artery. It will be coursing on the popliteal fossa to end at the lower border of the popliteus muscle. So when the popliteal artery will reach the lower border of the popliteus muscle, it will now terminate and become the anterior and posterior tibial artery by splitting. Then, hindi pa na. Wait lang ha. Hangit akong kuan. There. Now, the popliteal fossa will also contain popliteal vein, which will accompany the popliteal artery, although they will have an opposite direction. And the popliteal vein is a major blood vessel of the lower limb located medial to the artery and superficial. So remember this relationship that the popliteal artery is medial to the popliteal, the popliteal vein is medial to the popliteal artery, and it is more superficial. Then another content is your common peroneal nerve, which is otherwise known as the common fibular nerve. You will probably, you can see why this is named as fibular, because this will be seen on the side of the fibula. It is also known as external popliteal nerve or your lateral popliteal nerve, which provides sensation over the posterolateral part of the leg and the knee joint. The next content is your posterior cutaneous nerve of the thigh, known also as the posterior femoral cutaneous nerve. This is a sensory branch of the sacral plexus, and the posterior cutaneous nerve will originate from the anterior division of your first to the third sacral nerve. Now, your posterior cutaneous nerve of the thigh will supply the skin of the posterior thigh, the buttocks, and the posterior scrotum or labia majora. So you have to remember that your scrotum and labia majora are homologous. So whichever your cadaver may be, female or a male. So if in the practical this posterior continuous nerve of the thigh will be pinned, you have to look at the sex of the cadaver, whether it is a male or a female, so that you can say that uh, it will be another marker to um, to identify the posterior cutaneous nerve of the thigh. Then you have the small saphenous vein, also known as the short or lesser saphenous vein. This superficial vein, because your small saphenous vein is a superficial vein, will drain the lateral surface of the leg and ascend to the posterior surface. Remember, this is a vein, so it will go up. Then here, another content will be your tibial nerve, which is a branch of the sciatic nerve. Arise at the apex of the popliteal fossa. So this will become a tibial nerve coming from your femoral nerve, and it will be located at the apex of the popliteal fossa. It will also enter to the popliteal fossa, and it will innervate the superficial posterior group of muscle of the posterior compartment of the leg. So take note, your tibial nerve will be the innervation of the posterior group of muscles of the superficial posterior group of muscle in the posterior compartment of the leg. Then another content will be your genicular branch of the obturator nerve, or the posterior branch of the obturator nerve. Your genicular branch is a posterior branch of your obturator nerve, and this will pierce anterior part of the obturator externus muscle and supply it. It will be passing between the adductor brevis and the adductor magnus muscle, and within it, between these muscles, this will divide into smaller muscular branches that will supply the adductor muscles. Then the seventh content of the popliteal fossa are your lymph nodes. So you have the popliteus muscle. This is a flat, thin muscle of triangular outline lying in the floor of the popliteal fossa. This is the only content in the popliteal fossa, your popliteus muscle. So if this will be pinned in the practical, you just see if the muscle is within the popliteal fossa. So to continue, your popliteal artery is a continuation of your femoral artery, and it will enter the popliteal fossa through the largest inferior opening of the adductor magnus muscle, which is known as your adductor hiatus muscle. Take note of this structure, because this can be pinned by Dr. Gasco for practical purposes. So if you see that it is an opening of the adductor, it is an opening near the adductor magnus, then you can be assured that it is adductor hiatus. Actually, there are 4 openings of the adductor magnus muscle, but they are small. But the largest is the one which will pass through by your popliteal artery, your popliteal vein. Now, your popliteal artery will terminate at the lower border of the popliteus muscle as anterior and posterior tibial artery. Now, the popliteal vein, which will accompany the popliteal artery, is formed at the junction of the venae comitantes of the anterior and posterior tibial artery. So, meaning there will be a union of the venae comitantes of your anterior and posterior tibial artery. Remember what is a venae comitatus? It is a big vein that will accompany an artery. Initially, the popliteal vein will commence at the medial side of the popliteal artery. But as it ascends, because you have to remember this is a vein, so it will ascend, it will cross the artery to become lateral in position. So it will not, the popliteal vein in its course upward, it will not stay forever medial to the popliteal artery. It will cross so that before it goes out of the popliteal fossa, it will now be lateral to the popliteal artery. This will exit the popliteal fossa through the opening of the adductor magnus muscle. Remember your adductor magnus, adductor hiatus, to become the femoral vein. Now, there will be tributaries which will be corresponding veins to the arterial branches of the popliteal arteries and also the small saphenous vein. And another structure would be your posterior cutaneous nerve of the thigh, which I earlier mentioned, and this supplies the skin of the popliteal fossa. Then you have the obturator nerve, which will enter the popliteal fossa by entering the opening in the adductor magnus muscle. So this will also terminate by supplying the knee joints. Now, the relations of your popliteal fossa anteriorly will have the popliteal surface of the femur. Then you will have the oblique popliteal ligament of the knee joint and then the popliteus muscle. Then posteriorly, you will have the popliteal artery, the popliteal vein, the tibial nerve, and the fascia and skin. So I have already mentioned these branches of the popliteal artery. So this is your popliteal fossa. Remember, it is diamond shaped and it will have muscular boundaries and it will have contents. You have the popliteal artery, popliteal vein, and the tibial nerve, to name a few. So in a much clearer version, you will have now the boundaries. You have here the supero lateral, your biceps femoris muscle. Then the superior medial, you have the semitendinosus muscle and the semimembranosus. Then in inferomedial, you have the these are the gastrocnemius. These are the big muscle or your calf muscle in your leg. Um, this is the medial head of the gastrocnemius and the lateral head of the gastrocnemius. If talking on the lighter side of things, some persons are gifted with a beautiful gastrocnemius because it is beautifully shaped, but there are some who have an extra molded gastrocnemius muscle, but when when the muscle of the leg becomes the soleus anymore, it is thinner. So that what happens, what looks like ano yan, bagahin, it doesn't look good. Pero mga wow legs, you look at their gastrocnemius. Kay and wow legs, they have a beautiful shaped legs, tapos very prominent hinduro in gastrocnemius. Now, we go now to the posterior compartment of the leg. The posterior compartment of the leg is one of the fascial compartment of the leg. Diba? Before I go to the posterior compartment of the leg, I want you to take note what are the contents of the popliteal fossa that will enter or exit the adductor hiatus. Now, one of the fascial compartment of the leg is your posterior compartment of the leg. There are three compartments of the leg, diba? You have your anterior compartment and the lateral compartment and the posterior compartment. The posterior compartment is kind of the bigger of the three fascial compartments of the leg. Now, this is divided by an interosseous membrane between the interosseous border of the tibia and fibula, and further divided into superficial and deep compartment by a posterior intermuscular septa. Now, this subdivision, you have your divided by your interosseous membrane between the interosseous border of the tibia and fibula will give you an anterior compartment and a posterior compartment. And here, this division by a posterior intermuscular septa will give you a superficial and deep compartment containing the superficial group of muscles of the posterior compartment of the leg and the deep deep group of muscles uh, in this compartment, the deep compartment of the posterior compartment of the leg. Now, this fascial compartment will contain um, seven seven flexor group of muscle divided into a superficial and a deep group of muscles. Now, we go to the content of the posterior compartment of the leg. You have your posterior tibial artery. This is because the content of your posterior popliteal fossa, now your popliteal artery has divided to your posterior and anterior tibial artery. Your posterior tibial artery will go to the posterior compartment of the leg, while the anterior tibial artery will go to the anterior compartment. Now, your posterior tibial artery originates from your popliteal artery, and it will have 5 branches. Your peroneal artery, which is the biggest branch and the first branch, and this will have its own branches, your peroneal artery. It will give nutrient artery, which will supply the fibula. So when you say nutrient artery, it means it is an artery which supplies a bone. Then it will also give muscular branches. Your peroneal artery will give also muscular branches and perforating branches that will pierce the interosseous membrane. So this branch of your peroneal artery will go to the anterior compartment of the leg. It will, by perforating the interosseous membrane. Then other branches will be those that will go to the muscles at the back of the legs. Then also nutrient, I already mentioned that. Then anastomotic branches. The terminal branch is your medial and lateral plantar artery. That is the termination of your posterior tibial artery. So the posterior tibial artery is an artery of the lower limb and carries blood to the posterior compartment of the leg, and also it will supply the plantar surface of the leg. And this will arise from a popliteal artery through your tibiofibular trunk. And this will be accompanied by a deep vein posterior to the by a deep vein, and this posterior tibial vein along its downward course. So your posterior tibial artery will be accompanied by your posterior tibial vein. It's hanging again. May saringan lecture hamonhan po telemedicine. That sometimes at the point of your discussion, mahang ko no, and he was not talking about a lecture. He was attending to a patient by telemedicine. Makuri kay di rin na-cooperate iton computer. Iton Wi-Fi. So you see that this posterior tibial artery will be going to your okay. So this is your popliteal artery. So this is your popliteal fossa here, and it will. I sort of got a confusion in this because there is a tibio-peroneal trunk directly arising from your popliteal artery before it will give the posterior tibial artery. And from here, you can see that the tibio-peroneal trunk will give rise to your posterior tibial artery and your fibular or your common peroneal artery. But in our reading of our lecture, the popliteal artery will give rise to your posterior tibial artery, and your posterior tibial artery will give rise to your fibular artery. And your anterior tibial will be a direct branch of your popliteal as well as the posterior tibial artery. So this kind of give a confusion. But let us stick to what Snella said, that popliteal artery will terminate as your anterior tibial and posterior tibial. So another artery is your common peroneal. This is otherwise known as fibular artery. This is a here. Oh, nakakuan nga this is not from Snell. How you check lang daw. Pero I got this not from Snell. This is a your common peroneal artery is a posterolateral branch of the tibio-peroneal tract, just distal to the popliteal fossa. And this will supply the lateral compartment of the lower leg. Then you have the plantar arteries, which are the terminal branches of your your posterior tibial artery. You have the medial and a lateral plantar artery, which is also known as an internal plantar or external plantar artery respectively. So these are the terminal branch of your posterior tibial artery, with the former, meaning the medial plantar, smaller than the latter, meaning the lateral plantar artery. So between the two, the medial is smaller, while the lateral is bigger. Now this is an important an important relation in the posterior compartment of the leg. You have an anastomosis of the knee joint. God is so good to us that He gave us a good anastomosis in the knee joint. Why? Because your knee joint is in, when you walk, you will be alternately flexing and extending your knee joint so that there could be kinking of the arteries that will be passing through the knee joint. So, to compensate for this frequent um, alternate uh, alternate flexing and extension of the knee joint, so that there could be no compromising of the muscles in the lower extremity, there is an important an arterial anastomosis, which is participated by five um, actually, four lang. Yeah, femoral lang, tibial, popliteal, and posterior tibial. But your popliteal, there are two vessels that participate. The muscular branch of the popliteal muscle and an articular branch of your popliteal artery. Your muscular branch, these are the arteries that will go to the muscles in the popliteal area. While this articular branch will be the arteries that will go to the knee joint. So in the anastomosis, you have an anastomosis between the small branch of the femoral artery, anastomosing with branches of the anterior tibial artery and the muscular branch of the popliteal artery. Your muscular branch of your popliteal artery will be anastomosing with your small branch of femoral artery and the articular branch of the popliteal artery. So these are branches of the same blood vessel. They will be anastomosing with each other. Then your articular branch of the popliteal artery will anastomose with the branch of the anterior tibial artery in the same way that it will anastomose with the branch of the posterior tibial artery. Your branch of your anterior tibial artery will not only anastomose with a small branch of your femoral artery, but it will also anastomose with the posterior tibial artery. So if you see that the arteries here will be anastomosing with one, two, three arteries. So in the same way, your articular branch of your popliteal artery will anastomose with your muscular branch of your popliteal artery, a branch of your anterior tibial artery, and the branch of your posterior tibial artery. So there will be no compromise of blood supply in the knee joint because of this structure. Okay. So what comprises the back of the leg? The structure, you have the skin, you will have cutaneous nerves, lots of cutaneous nerves. There are four. You have the posterior cutaneous nerve of the thigh, which supplies the skin over the popliteal fossa and upper part of the back of the leg. And it will also supply the upper part of the back of the leg. So not only the skin over the popliteal fossa, then the lateral cutaneous nerve of the calf will supply the skin over the upper part of the posterolateral surface of the leg. Okay, ano ba yan? Then another nerve is your sural nerve. This will supply the skin over the lower part of the posterolateral surface of the leg. Then the saphenous nerve will supply the skin of the posteromedial surface of the leg. If you will notice, the upper part of the back of the leg, the skin on the upper part of the posterolateral surface of the leg will be supplied by your lateral cutaneous nerve of the calf, while your lower part of the posterolateral surface of the leg will be supplied by the sural nerve. But the posteromedial surface of the leg will be, so both the upper and the lower will be supplied by your saphenous nerve. Then you will have superficial veins. These are small saphenous vein which will form your superficial vein. These are the numerous small veins at the back of the leg, communicating veins with deep veins of the foot and anastomotic branches. So remember, this is already in the distal part of the lower extremity, so more anastomotic branches will be needed. Now this small saphenous vein will have two way of terminating. It will terminate by having union with your popliteal vein and your great saphenous vein. Another way will be the small saphenous vein will split and join the popliteal vein and the great saphenous vein. So although the termination will be both your popliteal vein and great saphenous vein, there are some cadavers, or there are some human beings in which the small saphenous vein will split first and join the popliteal vein and the great saphenous vein. But there will be some which will terminate by either by uniting with the popliteal vein or the great saphenous vein. Then you have the lymph vessels, whose drainage is either to the superficial inguinal lymph node or the popliteal node. So this you have to remember, if you will be presented with a patient in which there is a lymphadenopathy in the superficial inguinal lymph node, this could mean that there is a popliteal lesion. There could be a popliteal lesion. So, a patient may present to you nga, agi adigad na kani ako kay nahubag, may nahubag didihan ay akon inguinal region. The point where your leg and your lower extremity, your inguinal region. So you can trace where the infection is, or what causes the enlargement of the lymph node here, or if it could drain also into the popliteal node. So when a person will present to you with a popliteal lesion, it could be in concomitant with an enlargement of the popliteal node. Now, you have in your book the summary of in tabulated form. You have in your book the muscles in the posterior compartment of the leg. I did not put it here in my slide, but I made some summary. So the division of the posterior compartment muscles and the posterior compartment of the leg is it is divided into two by a superficial and a deep group of muscle by your transverse fascia. Now, the superficial group of muscles, there are three muscles in the superficial group, in which for commonalities, the common innervation is your tibial nerve. I will be talking only about the commonalities here. It's up to you to study now the origin, the insertion, the innervation, the action. But I will talk on the commonalities. So the common action of the superficial group of muscle will be plantar flexor at the ankle joint. Now this superficial group of muscles, which is made up of your plantares, oh yes, plantares, your gastrocnemius, and your soleus. This these three muscles provide the propulsive force in walking and running. So that when you walk, when you run, what pushes you would be these three muscles. Two muscles, the gastrocnemius and the plantaris, are flexor at the knee joint. Now they have different site of origin, but they have a common insertion to the posterior surface of the calcaneum. Remember, your calcaneum is a tarsal bone, the largest, tama ba? Largest tarsal bone. And one muscle which have two sides of origin, which is your gastrocnemius because it has two heads, and a big muscle originating, which will originate from the two bones of the leg, which is your soleus, will unite to end as the tendocalcaneus. This is your ano nga ba yun? Your tendocalcaneus is your the tendon. It's a big tendon at the ankle posterior surface of your ankle joint. You call this, I forgot. This is the weakness of the Hercules. Before inserting to the posterior surface of the calcaneum. So both your gastrocnemius and your soleus will unite to form a tendocalcaneus, and it will be the end of these two muscles, and they will insert into your calcaneum. Now, the deep group of muscles, there are four muscles. The deep group of muscles. Remember, your superficial group of muscles and inferior group of muscle will be divided because of the presence of the transverse fascia. Now, these four muscles are your popliteus muscle, your flexor digitorum longus, your flexor hallucis longus muscle, and your tibialis posterior muscle. So there are four. Their common innervation is your tibial nerve. So your muscles of the posterior compartment of the leg are all innervated by your tibial nerve, the superficial and the deep group of muscle. Now, all except popliteus muscle are plantar flexor at the ankle joint. And two of these muscles supports the medial longitudinal arch of the foot, your flexor hallucis longus and your tibialis posterior. So these two muscles supports the medial longitudinal arch of the foot. Your medial longitudinal arch of the foot is, you look at your foot now, there is a curve, an upward curve there. That is the arch. There is a medial and a lateral arch, with the medial arch more prominent. Now, now one muscle will support both the medial and lateral longitudinal arch of the foot, your flexor digitorum longus muscle. Because you have to remember, your flexor digitorum longus muscle, there are four. There are four. Uh, there are four in its termination. It will have four tendons. And one muscle is the key to unlock flexion of the leg at the knee joint, your popliteus muscle. What happens if your popliteal muscle will not be unlocked? You have to answer me that. You pass it in into my account. What happens if the muscle, if the popliteal muscle will not unlock the flexion of your leg? Now, all muscles of the posterior compartment of the leg originate at different, the deep muscles originates at different surface of the shaft of the two bones of the leg, tibia and fibula. So all muscles, it will, at different sites, but it will be on the shaft of the different surfaces of your tibia and fibula. Now, all muscles has a vertical direction originating from the different surface of the two bones and inserts as a bone of the foot, except one whose fiber runs medially downward. This is your popliteus muscle. So here, you have the muscles of the posterior compartment of the leg. The upper portion, that will be your, there you have your popliteal fossa. So, but we're talking of the muscles in the posterior compartment of the leg. This is the superficial group of muscle. You have here what is cut, the two heads, the body of the gastrocnemius were cut and watering, so that the soleus muscle will be exposed. So you have there the superficial group of muscle in the posterior compartment of the head of the leg. So you have here the gastrocnemius, the plantaris, then you have the soleus. Do you know that the plantaris is known also as the freshman's nerve? Why? Because the plantaris is just a small, short muscle, a small muscle actually, found on the medial lateral surface of the leg. And it forms the inferolateral border of the popliteal fossa. But it will have a much longer tendon. So this can be, for a freshman, this could be mistaken to be a tendon. Yes. No, a tendon being mistaken to be a nerve. So be careful. Dr. Gasco, mahilig kini mag-insert. Bangin ka mo, ma-biktimahan for what this is called as the freshman's nerve. So that is the superior compartment, a superior group of muscles in the posterior compartment. Now we go to the uh, deep group of muscles in the posterior compartment of the leg. You have your popliteus muscle. Take note that I mentioned earlier, this is the one only which will differentiate from the rest of the uh, deep group of muscle because of its orientation, in which it will run from your femur to your tibia. Then you have the soleus muscle, which was still seen here. The soleus muscle here was cut so that the deep group of muscle will be exposed. You have the tibialis posterior here. This is the uppermost of the deep group of muscles. Then you have the flexor digitorum muscle. This is the one which I said, which will end with four tendons, and it will go to the digits. Then you have the flexor hallucis longus, meaning hallucis will be the big toe. It will go to the big toe. Then you have your fibularis brevis, but this is part now of the lateral compartment. So what you have is the four muscles, 1, 2, 3, 4 of pictures. So this is just a repetition, superficial group. Then uh, the gastrocnemius has been cut to show the soleus muscle. This is your calcaneo tendon muscle. I forgot the term. Um, this is the Achilles tendon. This is otherwise known as the Achilles tendon. Remember, I don't know. I heard about NBA player who got an injury with this. Na waray pa kuan laanay, ginpapahuway laanay. I forgot the name. Okay, that's about all of my slide, and thank you for noting this, and thank you for reading your book again, and thank you for answering what I have thrown to you. What if your what's this popliteus muscle will not unlock? What will happen? And also, ano pa nga ba yun? Basta note na lang, in the slides I mentioned in mga dapat i-answer ninyo. Okay, good afternoon, Macau.